Good morning. It is Saturday, July 25th at about 10:30 in the morning. My name is Larry Cedar. I'm back with you for another session on scanning, spelled Sqanning. It's a made-up word, but it references the idea of scanning, as in scanning your body, in this case looking for pockets of muscular tension. It's very important that we emphasize that scanning is a muscular technique. It's not a mental technique. There's no phrases or thoughts or theories per se. Basically, all you're doing is working with the musculature to release muscular tension, and we'll get into that in a minute. This could be my very last session. All my sessions are basically the same. I've done hundreds of them. I myself have been scanning for thousands of hours. Probably in a year or so, I'll have approached like 10,000 hours of scanning. And I come here just to kind of bring any new insights and to reinforce the theory so that you understand, if you do decide to take up the practice of scanning, what some things you might expect. So I'm going to go a little heavy on theory today. Some sessions are more theory, some sessions are more practice, but because this could be my last session, and I'll explain why in a bit, I'm going to go heavy on theory so that if you ever need to download this session and keep it as a reference, you are free to do that, so you can kind of touch on some of the ideas behind this process, this technique. Scanning with a Q, as I define it, is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So we're using release of muscular tension, incremental, small amounts, progressively, cumulatively, to bring on a state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So that's the fundamental definition. Now I'll talk about where these ideas came from. I've said this many times, but I'll say it again because a man deserves credit. A man named Thaddeus Golas, Golas, wrote a book which you can still get, I believe, on Amazon or whatever, called The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, which I've read many, many, many times. And in it, he has a fundamental theory that the entire universe, everything in the universe, including us, our bodies, ourselves, our world, vacillates between two basic states of being. Contraction, squeeze your hands together, feel what that feels like, and expansion, release. Contraction, expansion. Everything in the universe, everything, is either at any given moment contracting or expanding or vacillating between the two. Some things are more contracted, some things are more expanded. And if you accept that premise, then you can begin to look at your world and your life through that prism. You can begin to say, on any given moment, am I more contracted or am I more expanded? And begin to identify what it feels like to be more contracted or to be more expanded. And we vacillate between these two states, contraction, expansion. And in my case, what I discovered was to have a fulfilling, happy, sort of calm, successful life. I wanted to be somewhere in the middle, which is called centered. Contraction, expansion. And so we want a balance. Contraction is the bringing together of forces, materials, ideas to achieve a goal. And expansion is letting go of all of that, nothingness. And we vacillate between these two. Obviously, on this planet Earth, we need to stay contracted to a degree. It's how we get things done. It's what we are. We ourselves, our bodies, are a contraction of materials, atoms, minerals, substances to form this body. The contraction of ideas to give ourselves a name, a job. We accumulate money to buy things. These are contractions where if we just were to let them dissipate, they would all go away and we would be nothing. So we need contractions. That's the stuff of life. It's how we build skyscrapers. It's how we come up with medical solutions. It's also how we fight wars and how we relate to each other. We come up with ideas and theories and practices and materials to help us advance our agenda. Contraction. The problem I discovered for myself, and I began to recognize in studying this theory, was that typically when I felt bad, and that could mean anything, that could mean confused, that could mean resistant, that could mean tense, physically racked with pain or discomfort or tension. When I felt that way, I was typically overly contracted. And this is why we seek expansion. If you go to a massage therapist, if you drink a shot of whiskey, if you smoke a joint, if you take a drug, we crave expansion when we are overly contracted. We crave it. We feel we're out of balance. We feel we're rigid, impermeable, stiff, unagreeable, locked into a position. Maybe we're bouncing off of people like solid objects do, and we're not happy. So we seek ways to loosen up, if you will, to expand. Alcohol, drugs are chemical expansions. Massage, vacations. These are other types of expansion that we naturally crave to balance our lives out, why we take vacations. So if you look at your life through that prism, then you say, well, great. So I'm always going to, have times when I'm more contracted, and we tend to contract more than we expand, because in order to achieve in life, the concept of achievement is, again, bringing together of ideas, shaping ideas, pursuing those goals. This is a contracted process. We're always, if we're trying to survive and be successful in this life, always going to be contracting typically more than we expand. And that's when our life gets out of balance. And that's when we're unhappy. And that's when we feel tense or tired or in pain. We're typically overly contracted. So if you accept that premise, and I've embraced it fully, that's why I share it, because I've been doing it for so many years. I honestly believe it works. Then what you want to do is learn how to expand, but naturally, without having to take a shot of whiskey, without having to smoke a joint, without having to go to a therapist or a masseuse. What if there was a technique by which we could bring ourselves into balance, contraction, bring ourselves into a more expanded state, just through our own devices, just through the simple process of what? Muscular release. And this is what I discovered. Thinking processes, self-help thinking processes involve contraction. Thinking is a contractive process. When you're thinking, when you're worrying, you're bringing together ideas, sometimes fearful, sometimes enthusiastic, but you're thinking. The brain creates these thoughts in the form of words or images that, again, in an attempt to pursue our goals or to fix our life, we create these contractions. So I wanted a technique that didn't involve, in trying to become expanded, I wanted to not choose more contraction as a means of do that, but actually expand so that I could balance myself out. And what I discovered, and this is the crux of the technique, is that muscles are the perfect tool to bring yourself from a state of contraction into a state of expansion. Why? Because muscles can only do one of two things: contract, make a fist, or expand, release. Contract, expand. Can't do both at the same time. That's the amazing thing about it. It's a totally binary process. The muscles, I won't say they're dumb, but they're simple. They can either contract or expand. They're not complicated. So unlike a theory or an idea or a book you have to read on how to expand or what to do, we eliminate all of that. We get rid of the thinking process, and we just strictly work on releasing muscular tension. Why? Because as the muscles go, so goes the entire being. So you use the muscles. If you were trying to take this journey to a state of expansion, the muscles are your guide. They are leading you into a more expanded world through the simple act of muscular release. And you say, well, what about my thoughts? What about all the ideas in my head? Well, the brain is like a muscle of sorts. You don't start working with the brain, but as you begin to release muscular tension, what happens is the entire body follows suit and begins to relax. So too the mind, which is part of the body, everything works together, begins to, in a sense, relax. It stops forming thoughts. It releases those thoughts, and they simply float away, and your mind becomes quiet. So we're going to go through the actual process here, but I referenced why this might be my last session and how that relates to this technique. And that is simply this. Defining things, describing things, locking into a theory or technique of any kind is a contraction of sorts. And that's a good thing. We need to have practices and techniques that we use in our life to get us through our day. But the very idea of using a contractive process, which is defining this technique, giving it a name, is contractive. So I've said this before, I always realized that at some point I would abandon the name, abandon the technique, because it's just a further contraction of my being. And I'd be better off taking the time I used to define the technique and describe the technique, simply letting go of the technique. That's part of scanning. You ultimately want to let go of everything, if only for a moment. And every session is basically the same. So once I've stopped doing these sessions, they will be there as a reference for anyone should you seek a reminder or refresh your course. But there seems to be less and less need to go over it again and again and again. Or, for example, write a book about it or teach a class about it, because the technique is all about letting go of definitions, letting go. Now, you need disciplines and things you do to practice and get better at them. But in this particular case, the most effective way to scan, to release muscular tension, to let go, is to stop talking about it. And I've often said that if you were to see me somewhere out there in the world and say, hey, scanning this and that, I'll probably say, Rule number one of scanning is don't talk about scanning. Scan. Let go. So that's why this might be the last session, but feel free to download it and share or review. Okay, so we have the basic fundamental premise of this technique. Muscular release is moving your very being from a state of contraction, squeeze your fist, to a state of expansion. As you begin to practice this technique, you'll begin to study what it feels like to expand. You'll become familiar with an expanded state feels like versus a contracted state. The difference between squeezing your hands together, how do you feel when you do that, and letting them go? How does that feel different? And you'll begin to identify things within your own body that are signs that are telling you you're more expanded. Typically that feels really good and you're going to want to do it more. But you're going to come up against an initial resistance, strong resistance to letting go, as we all do in life. It's very difficult to let go. Why? Because we have been trained to believe that contraction is always the answer. If you have an issue, if there's a problem that has to be solved, and many, many times this is true, the idea is to contract, to say something, to think something, to write something, to build something, to act upon something. That's our go-to solution, and that is completely valid. Contraction is the way to solve many, many issues and accomplish many, many things in life. What the practice of scanning teaches you is that of equal value is letting go. So if I spent 90% of my waking hours contracting, and I find myself at the end of the day very tense, thinking too much, worried, confused, resistant, I'm in a highly contracted state. Typically what we'll do is to get out of that, we'll either take a chemical expansion like booze or dope, or we'll go to someone who can help us expand, or, like myself, we'll just contract some more. I've contracted. What do? Well, I'll scan the internet. I'll watch TV. I'll eat something. I'll worry about something. I'll think obsessively about something, because that's our go-to solution. What I've learned through years and years of practice is letting go, completely letting go through the incremental release of muscular tension, and thereby also letting go of your thoughts, can solve problems. It can make you feel better, but it can also solve problems. It doesn't feel that way. When you feel obsessed with fixing a problem, it's hard to let go of that pursuit. It's hard to believe when you're in the middle of a difficult situation that just doing nothing and letting go will solve that problem. But when you've scanned enough, you become practiced at it enough, you'll begin to see that when you, in effect, clear the slate, when you let go of everything to this place of nothingness, and we're going to start practicing in a second so I can explain more, you actually are better at solving problems because your eyes are opened. You're not limited by your concepts or ideas, your political beliefs, your religious beliefs, your personal beliefs about people, your preconceptions, misconceptions about people go away. You're completely open and available to what life presents you. And sometimes there are solutions that are right in front of you that you couldn't see because you were too clouded by your own contractive thoughts, theories, ideas. And so when you clear the slate and go to a place of nothingness, suddenly there are infinite possibilities. And you will actually become more effective at solving problems. But intuitively, it feels wrong. It feels like you're giving up on your pursuit. And this is why practicing scanning is important, because we're literally retraining ourselves to respond differently to challenges, the challenges of our life. At least that's the case for me. So I've laid a lot of information on you, but basically it comes down to expansion, contraction, moving from a contracted into an expanded state through the release of muscular tension. So this is longer than I've usually talked about theory, but we have some time left. Let's talk about the actual practice. So squeeze your hands together, tight, tight, tight. That's contraction. See what that feels like. And I want you to really concentrate just on how things feel in this practice, how they feel. Not what you think about it. How do I feel when I squeeze my hands very tightly together? That's a contraction. Not a bad thing. Strength is good. Contraction is good. When you got to hold on to something, you need strength. But how does it feel? Well, I feel a little restricted. I feel like maybe a little pressure in my chest. I feel the sensations of effort that come with that. Again, not a bad thing, but just note the difference. Now on my count, you're going to let go of that grip. Remember, muscles can either contract or expand. They can't do both at the same time. So any amount of muscular release will lead you into an expanded state, no matter how small. We'll talk about that more in a second. On my count, release, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. You have just expanded. Now, that could be 1%, 0.5%. It doesn't matter. It's very important in scanning, in the practice of scanning, to acknowledge even the smallest amount of expansion. Again, because you can't contract or expand at the same time. If you are contracted and you expand, you've moved towards expansion. So even the smallest amount moves you in the right direction. And what you're going to do is, through this muscular release, and I'm going to show you the actual technique now, you're going to cumulatively add small amounts of expansion until you have completely expanded. It's very important to try not to get frustrated by what feels like a lack of progress. Like, you may feel like, I can't relax. I did this. I still feel tense. But you did a little bit, right? Acknowledge that. Acknowledge even the smallest release. Scanning takes a great deal of concentration and focus and discipline, because what we're up against is our own habitual behavior. We're talking about decades and decades of approaching things a certain way, and you're asking yourself to change. What's harder than that? What's harder than change? Nothing's harder than change. And the older you get, the harder it is to change. So you have to practice. And the more familiar you become with this sensation of release, the easier, well, I won't say it'll get easier, but the more you will understand how it works. And you're going to want to do it more and more and more. So, scanning is the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. Incremental release of muscular tension. If you ever need to remember what that means, squeeze your hands together, 3, 2, 1, release. Squeeze your hand together, 3, 2, 1, release. Take a deep breath. You just expanded. Okay? Let's start. I have divided my body into 8 what I call muscular zones. It's difficult to release all the muscular tension in your body at once, obviously. So we focus on zones. And some areas you'll understand instinctively how to release the muscular tension. Others you'll go, how do I do that? How do I release the muscular tension in my back? What? Someone has to do that for me. I have to take a sauna. I have to get a massage. I can't do that myself. Well, you can. You're unfamiliar with the process. You're not practiced in it. But as you begin to do this, you'll see you can. So let's go through the 8 muscular zones. Number 1 is the face. Always start with the face because you can look in the mirror and actually see the change from contraction to expansion. On my count, I want you to release all the muscular tension in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. What's crucial in scanning is that you pay attention and acknowledge that feeling. Did you feel what it felt like to release that tension? Did you feel that release? The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Turning off the power to the muscles. We tend to walk around in a semi-contracted state, even when we're sitting and watching TV and doing nothing. It's our defense. We're habitually contracted. It's very difficult to just let go. So you'll be surprised, even just sitting in this chair, how much tension we're going to find. And again, we're scanning the body. We're looking for pockets of tension, and we're going to repeat that. We're going to cycle through the body again and again, each time moving the dial a little bit further. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Did you feel that? Did you feel that change from this to this? Did you feel it in your face? One more time, 3, 2, 1, and release. Slouching, slackening. You've begun the process of expanding, letting go. You're going to move yourself into an expanded state. And you'll know what that feels like when you get there. You're going to love it. Zone 2, the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. Just a slight slouching kind of feeling, letting go. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. You're taking control of your muscular system. Now, we tend to feel like it's out of my control. Like I said, I got to go to someone who's going to work out this muscle, this knot, or whatever. We tend to think we don't have control. You'd be amazed at how much control you have. You can do this, 3, 2, 1, release. All you have to do now is train yourself to release tension in these different areas. Again, incrementally, progressively, cumulatively. I give myself at least a half an hour, hopefully an hour for my sessions, because I know how contracted I typically am. I think a lot. I work a lot. I make a great deal of effort to succeed in my life. I overthink things. So I tend to walk around in a contracted state. And I always say, contraction wants to keep contracting. So the first phase of your sessions will be the hardest because you're literally taking the bull by the horns and saying, we're going to not do that anymore. We're going to let go. So be patient and be persistent. Again, even if you move the dial a little bit, it matters. Zone 3, the back of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. Did you feel that? It's really important. And if you didn't feel it, that's okay. Even thinking about releasing muscular tension has an effect on that muscle, no matter how slight. The back of the head. 3, 2, 1. You know the state it's in. And on my snap, you're going to let go. 3, 2, 1, and release. It's as simple as this to this. You're just not familiar with how to do that with the rest of your body. Again, the face is always a great place to start because you can actually see the change. Look in the mirror. 3, 2, 1, and release. That's all we're doing. That is scanning. Okay? Very simple to learn, very challenging to practice. Okay. I always joke that one of the reasons I don't want to teach these sessions anymore or talk about scanning is because here I am creating a bunch of words describing locking into a technique, which is contraction. So it's counterproductive in a way. But at some point, you have to communicate these ideas. But as I say, I'll leave this session up. Feel free to download it, watch it again as many times as you like. But for me, it's counterproductive as a person to teach it rather than practice it. But nonetheless, here we go. Zone 4. 3, 2, 1, and release. Think about how infrequently we take the time in our day to stop and do nothing and let go. And not just because we don't have time. You can always find 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a half an hour, somewhere in your day, even if it's in the middle of the night when you're lying in bed. We don't because it's frightening to let go. We want to maintain control of what? Our identity, our name, our money, our relationships, the problems we're dealing with. We don't want to stop working on those because we feel like we'll lose control and that will be the end of everything. So we have a natural resistance to doing nothing, to letting go, just completely letting go. I'll lose everything is the feeling. I'll lose everything. I've got to constantly be holding on to whatever it is that you feel defines you. So you're up against yourself. Scanning is a struggle with oneself. And it's not an evil struggle. It's not a sad or angry struggle. It's just a struggle to retrain yourself. Again, we're creatures of habit. It's very difficult when we're used to contracting as the solution to everything to say, well, how about if I solve this problem by not thinking about it? By letting go of all intention, by letting go of all muscular tension, by just doing nothing, going to a place of emptiness, non-resistance. You go, I can't do that. No, you can. Not only can you, but it's an incredibly effective way to deal with problems. To go to a place of nothingness, as I said, opens you up to a world of possibility because you are no longer limited by your own restrictive ideas and theories and biases. You see everything. And solutions come to you that you never would have imagined possible. So we have to change our way of going through life, balance ourselves with expansion. So we've done zone 1, the face, zone 2, the top of the head, zone 3, the back of the head. Now we go into the neck. On my count, focus on how it feels, and then release tension on the snap. 3, 2, 1, and release. That will feel different for everyone. For me, there's a sort of drop. When I release the tension, I feel a sort of a drop. A sort of a space is created in that zone. A grip is released. Every part of you, every muscle you have is the same as this. Holding, releasing. So look for that slight change. Incremental is very important because it doesn't matter how small it is, it all adds up. You throw enough pennies in a jar, soon you have $100 because even though they were pennies, they're cumulative. The neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. And you're going to want to breathe as you become more expanded, as you move into a more expanded state. Your muscles drop this hold they have on you. You typically don't breathe enough, and you're oxygen depleted. So when your body sees an opening, when you let go of tension, the body sees that it's okay to breathe. It will say, let me breathe. I really needed that. And that will contribute to this expanded process. You're going to start to feel a change come over you, take over you. And you'll begin to understand where you're going with this. And you're going to want to do it more. Zone 5 is the shoulders. Let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. Again, the shoulders. Let them drop. 3, 2, 1, and release. You don't have to snap. I snap to kind of imitate the sound of a light switch. If it takes power to hold your muscles together, it takes energy. Flipping that switch turns the power off, and they're just nothing. Muscles without power being sent to them are just slack. They're just flesh. But the muscles, when you send the signal through energy, you have to have energy to use your muscles. They are instructed to contract, to do their job, and that's good. But we can't tend to carry around a lot of muscular tension that's completely unnecessary. We could all be so much more relaxed all the time, but again, habitually, we stay in this held, protective state. Useful, but sometimes unnecessary and a waste of energy. This is why you sometimes feel exhausted by your own thoughts, because they're causing you to contract, use energy, and it's unnecessary. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, the neck, the shoulders, 5, now zone 6, chest, stomach, front of the waist. I call it the plate of armor. Just imagine, if you will, the muscles in that area. You may not be used to focusing on the muscles of your body so specifically, but you're going to learn how to do that now. See how they feel on my count. 3, 2, 1, release. 3, 2, 1, and release. Think of it as if someone, you're a marionette and someone cut your strings and you just went like this. The marionette, the strings, are the power to your muscles. You cut the strings, they don't do anything. So you're becoming a marionette without strings. Is what's happening. You're going to start to feel that dropping. And, that may feel different ways for different people. As funny as it sounds, when I start cutting off the power to my muscles like that, I feel useless. I feel like I can't do anything. I'm becoming useless. I'm becoming vulnerable. I'm becoming nothing. And it's a little scary sometimes, because we all want to be prepared to deal with everything. And we think we have to stay in this state to do that, but you don't. Again, we're just familiarizing ourselves. We're getting comfortable with the notion of release. Again, zone 6, chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. People always tell you sit up straight, hold your stomach in, all these things. Yes, to face certain situations, you want to kind of keep it together. That's contraction. But again, we're studying the value of the opposite, the value of letting go. How can I protect myself? How can I achieve in life in this state of nothingness where you're not going to stay there? You're only going there to bring yourself into balance. Okay? We've contracted a lot. We're bringing ourselves into balance. Expansion feels amazing. When you have achieved a highly expanded state, you're just going to want to stay there. Now, you can't conduct your life from that place. You have to go out and sign checks, and in my case, audition, or do your accounting job, or manufacturing, or whatever it is you do requires contraction. You can't sit in your office like this and get anything done. That's not the goal. The goal is to balance yourself, to bring yourself out of a overly contracted state into a more expanded state so that you are balanced. Then you go back to your contracted world, okay? But again, not to forget that in that contracted world we live in, you'd be amazed at how much expansion can help you solve problems. We're retraining our brains and our very being to understand that the approach doesn't always have to be contract. Sometimes the approach to a problem can be relax. Let go. Do nothing. For 5 minutes. Anyone can spare 5 minutes. Take the risk. Take the chance. Zone 7, and then we'll wrap it up with Zone 8. Zone 7 is down the back and into the waist and all-important pelvic region of the body. The pelvic region of the body is very potent because it's the area of sexuality and waste elimination, an area full of vulnerability, concerns, fears, anxiety, embarrassment, control, lack of control. There's a lot tied up in the pelvic region. And I always say, go for the most contracted area first. You'll get the most positive results. It'll be the most challenging, but it will yield the greatest results. Because where we hold most of our contraction, most of our tension, tends to be the focal point that guides the rest of our body, our being, and our mind. So if you can get to the toughest spots first, you'll see an amazing effect. But again, it's a challenge. So think of the pelvic region. Think of the feelings that are associated with that region. Think of how perhaps in a desire to keep control of that region, because nobody wants to be embarrassed or lose control of their sexual desires or waste elimination, obviously. Think about how you might be holding in that area and how you can possibly release 1% of the tension, the muscular tension in that area. On my count, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvic, 3, 2, 1, and release. See what that change was, how that felt, and explore this on your own. Take as much time as you want. Again, take the time to learn how to expand. Time is a contractive concept. We take what just exists and we divide it up into years, months, days, hours, minutes, seconds, so that we can conduct our lives, so we can coordinate with people, so we can have an awareness of where we are in a certain time spectrum. But in an expanded state, there's no such thing as time. It doesn't matter. There's just now. You've heard that concept. There's just now. Live in the now. Well, when you expand, you stop worrying about, quote unquote, wasting time and just exist. So any of these steps you may take in scanning, if you start to feel like I'm wasting time, what is this achieving? I could be doing X, Y, or Z. That's your contractive mind wanting to stay contracted, to live in a contracted world. And what you're asking yourself when you scan is to let that go, so that when you become expanded, suddenly you're not aware of time. You stop worrying about time, wasting it or using it correctly or properly. You stop, and this is assuming you don't have an appointment you have to get to. Again, you've set aside a portion of your day to scan, to go to a place where you're not aware of time. You don't know what day it is. You don't know what hour it is. It doesn't matter. In an expanded state, time doesn't exist. You just are in the now. So I say this because you're going to come up against yourself saying all kinds of things. This isn't working. This is taking too long. I'm wasting time. I could be doing this, this, and this. And that's just the contractive self arguing. You have to hang in there and stay with this incremental release of muscular tension until those thoughts simply, you'll see, they'll float away. And at some point, after scanning for half an hour or whatever, you'll go, why do I feel so much less hurried? Why am I so much less worried about what's happening at noon or 1? Why am I suddenly just not thinking about anything? Which is how we feel on vacation. Again, you go to Hawaii and you lie on the beach and you forget what day it is. You forget about your work. You forget about your obligations and concerns, and time goes away. And that's because you've expanded. So we're trying to do that. We're trying to learn how to do that on our own, in our house, in our office, wherever we are, not in the car. Don't do it while you're driving. But so that we can induce that state. And someone said to me, I got to get a vacation. I need a vacation. Well, take a mini vacation every day. Take an expanded, journey. And you'll be amazed at the results. Amazed at how it changes the rest of your day. You'll think you were tired and out of energy, and suddenly you're rejuvenated, and your mind is clear, and problems solve themselves. But you have to go into that place of nothingness to come back into this world with a clear mind and a relaxed body. So zone 7, again, the pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. 3, 2, 1, and the pelvis, release. The challenge of scanning is being patient and persistent. It's not a quick result. It's going to take practice. So, as talking heads say, you may find yourself frustrated, disappointed, confused, all sorts of feelings in letting go of your contractive self to go into the expanded state, because you're conditioned to be contracted. Everything about this may possibly seem wrong. And I have that experience many times in my day when I'll be in a state about something, many times in my day. And I want to keep contracting, thinking about it, talking about it, working on it, asking questions, worrying about it. And I know now, through years of practice, that the actual solution is to stop thinking about it and let go of muscular tension. And I'll take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and every part of my body screams, no, you must keep working on this. You must keep thinking about this. You must keep debating this in your mind or talking to people about it. Every part of me wants to continue doing that. And even though I know scanning works, I have this incredible struggle within myself to stay with it. And then once I've done it, I go, why was I so worried? This feels great. Problem's still there? I'll solve it. No hurry, no big deal. In a contracted state, things seem much, much worse than they typically are. In an expanded state, even the biggest problems seem manageable. So take that chance. The pelvis, 3, 2, 1, and release. There you go. Now we're going to move into the final zone, which is down the legs, across the knees, and into the feet. On my count, release the smallest amount of tension, as much as you can, but even if it's a small amount of tension in your feet, focus on your feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. You might feel a tingling, you might feel a throbbing as you relax the muscles. The blood vessels are freer to open. The flow increases. You'll feel a throbbing as this blood flows into areas that perhaps it has been kept from by your constriction, by your contraction. So tingling, throbbing, breathing, an awareness of your body that you have perhaps lost touch with. This is one of the greatest things about scanning, is you'll suddenly go like, this is weird. I can feel my heart beating. This is strange. I'm hearing things that I didn't hear before. This is odd. I feel very comfortable just doing nothing. I can feel the air on my skin. And you will get quieter. Your mind, your body will become more quiet. And stay there as long as you like. It's what I call coming back to the original self. Before we had a job or a name, or were worried about money, or had cars or houses, or relationships, or an identity, we were just a human being, a body. That's all we were. There was nothing to think about, except if we were hungry, to get some food, to breathe. It's what I call the original self. And in that state, all you are is a human being, a body. And when you're expanded, you have a heightened awareness of what it is to just be a human being, a body. Now that can be thrilling or that can be terrifying, depending on how you, where you lie in the feelings continuum. Some people are very happy with feelings, and some people are very frightened by feelings. And you'll find out for yourself how frightened you are by experiencing yourself, coming into yourself, experiencing the sensations of your skin, your hunger, your sexual desire, your needs, your physical needs. You become this living, breathing creature, just flesh and bone, and you feel yourself at your most fundamental. And again, that can be terrifying, but it can also be thrilling, because we spend so much of our life searching for things that give us meaning, that make us feel, so that we feel alive. We're terrified of dying, obviously. So anything that makes us feel alive, we search out these things: skydiving, hobbies. This is me. This is me. I do this, so this is me. That's me. I know who I am now. I can feel myself. And we want so desperately just to feel ourselves. When you scan, you go to the ultimate fundamental feeling of self. You have nothing. You have no hobbies. You have no pursuits. You're just feeling what it is to just be a human being. And again, it can be frightening, but it can be sensational. Because once you've experienced that, you know who you are. I know who I am. I can feel it. I can feel it. Great deal of satisfaction gives you a great deal of confidence, because there's no more questions about who you are. You're feeling who you are. There's good and bad, but you feel who you are. Then you take that knowledge, that sensation, back into the contractive world, and people see you differently. They see you as someone who's confident, someone who knows who they are, who's not afraid of their feelings or their thoughts. They're just so happy to be alive. So that's the benefits, again, of scanning, of moving into an expanded state as you come back into yourself. So again, this was a longer session than usual because I spent a lot of time on theory. But you get the gist. In practice, I recommend a half an hour a day, if not an hour, moving through the muscular zones. If your thoughts are just driving you crazy as you're doing it, that's the contractive self. That will slowly dissipate as you relax your mind. They'll float away. You have to be persistent. You have to be disciplined. You have to be patient. And know that the payoff is maybe 20 minutes away, maybe half an hour away. When I'm scanning in the middle of the night and I can't sleep, I go, God, in about 20 minutes, I'm going to feel great, but I got to go through this battle with my muscular self for about 20 minutes. Be patient, stay with it. Try it at least 1 or 2 times where you actually stay with it long enough to break through so you can know what it feels like to move into a fully expanded state. The more you achieve that, the more you'll understand that even though it's difficult, it's worth it. And you will practice more and more and more. I try to practice at least an hour a day, sometimes 2. It's still a challenge. The only difference now, having done it for many, many years, is that I'm familiar with the journey. So if I'm at war with myself, I don't get as frustrated. I get impatient, but I go, stay with it. You know what's on the other side. So take yourself to that place as often as you can. And most importantly, remember that incremental muscular release, that means even the smallest amount of muscular release, moves you in that direction. Okay, so don't judge yourself. Don't say it's not working, it's not happening. Just stay with it. Stay with it. It's as if I said to you, here's a pile of sand, and here's a teaspoon, a tiny little teaspoon, and I want you to take that sand, teaspoon by teaspoon, and fill this cup. And when the cup is filled, you're going to have this amazing feeling. So you're sitting there with this teaspoon, and you're going, just like, this is stupid. Okay, I'll keep going, and you're going to want to quit. Okay? But 1 time or 2 times or 3 times, you're going to finish doing that. At the end of that, the cup's going to be full, and suddenly you're going to go like, wow, I never would have guessed that tedious process was going to bring me to this. But once you know that, you'll be willing to do it again. So again, take the challenge. I've been doing it for so long. I know it works. I know it. Okay? Even when I don't believe it myself, I still am able to say, stay with it. You'll bring yourself into this expanded, balanced state. And once you've felt that, peace, calm, amiability, agreeability, permeability, that sensation of openness, nothingness, and peace, you're going to want to visit it again, again, and again. So that's it. It's called Sqanning, Sqanning. It's the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. We just scratched the surface today. We moved the dial maybe this far, but it doesn't matter. If you've experienced that, you have achieved a lot. Just try to bring that into your life, letting go of muscular tension until you achieve balance. And, the only way to find out is to try it. Give it a shot. Best of luck to you. If you ever have any questions, feel free to message me. You feel free to download this. I post it here on my personal page. I also post it on the Sqanning page on Facebook. All my previous sessions. Every session is basically the same. I just highly recommend you try it. I've had tremendous results, and I recommend it for anyone, anytime, to achieve balance, peace, and calm in your life. That's it. Thanks a lot. Have a great day. Bye-bye.